Hey everybody, it's the Iron Sun, or aka Mr. Mandingo, coming back again, and I got a topic to talk to y'all about. I'm gonna zoom out my screen, stop the cam, for my topic, but for right now I'm just chilling in. So I'm just checking in. So right now I don't have a computer. I'm using a friend's computer. He's chilling here for a second, and I'm fortunate enough to actually start to be able to start a stream up again. So I'm going to do a short stream and probably do short 2-minute clips, pre-recorded clips of just concepts that I've come up with and ideas that I've kind of salvaged together. There's some content creators that have touched on a lot of this and have gone much deeper than I have. Posse has talked about the love versus value thing, but in the topic for today, it's the feminine psyche and the love versus value dynamic between men and women. Uh, yeah, so let's get started. All right, so first off, I'd like to keep this live stream short. Unless someone pops up, there were some people scheduled to be on this live stream, but I don't know if they're going to be able to make it. So it's kind of just maybe they do, maybe they don't kind of thing. We'll see. Either way, so yeah, the love versus what up? I don't remember you, Jim. Nice to meet you, I guess. So the love versus value dynamic is an extremely important dynamic, I believe. A lot of boys, when they're growing up, they're extremely unprepared for this. There's a lot of whimsicalness in terms of the red pill and growing up around women that a lot of guys retain. So the love versus value dynamic is covered by what's his name? By Rollo Tomasi, and he essentially talks about how. And by the way, Jim, I could show my face, but I would rather people focus on the message of what I'm saying as opposed to just who I am. So I'm gonna just kind of keep my face out of it so people can just listen to what I'm saying. And this is pre-recorded for anyone who wants to come in. And again, I'm gonna make short sound bites of these ideas and go further into them. So one idea I came up with, and it's not a new idea, it's just that women in the dating market nowadays, they're like consumers and men are like products. And I've talked to people about this. I talk to people constantly about these ideas, and a lot of people end up agreeing because men are put in a situation where they have to go up to a woman and proposition a woman for, they proposition a woman, or they're at least demonstrating value to the woman. And the woman is put in a position to appraise that value. One concept, just as an aside, there's this idea. A lot of feminists and women alike will say that men should show their emotions more, and they should express themselves more to women. They should feel free to do that. Only issue is women are constantly appraising a man's value. So one of the issues with showing your emotions as a man is that women use male emotion to appraise a male's value. A lot of women don't know this, but men know it instinctively. Yeah. So like if a male is showing too much negative emotion, especially if he's broken up with or he's rejected by a female, that would make the female basically solidify in her mind that the guy wasn't good enough. So it's almost like he's sealing the deal. It's like, okay, yeah, she broke up with the guy, but look, he's crying, he's torn up, he's calling her and texting her all the time. That kind of solidifies for her, okay, this guy wasn't high enough value because he's getting into his feelings. He doesn't have enough of his own life for me to actually value him enough to actually want him back. That's the real nitty gritty truth as to why guys don't express their emotion. Testosterone makes them extremely heightened to their position in the social hierarchy, and guys are motivated to move up said hierarchy. And one of the ways we do that is through the testosterone inhibiting our emotional response. That makes us seem more competent, even if on the inside we're fighting like demons. We have a lot of bad emotions. The testosterone is at least going to allow the male to do to take action. And ultimately, that's what's going to get the male out of that malaise. Uh, so, yeah, I went on a tangent, but let's get back into love versus value. So, with love versus value, uh, males, a lot of times women, once the guy gets gets the guts and he has fun with the woman, women oftentimes will, she'll kind of appraise her own value in a way after the sex. So she'll become more self-conscious in a way because she'll be like, what are we? Like, then that's when she wants to define the relationship, which is interesting. But at first, she wants it to be ambiguous because it's alluring for it to be ambiguous. It's seductive. Seduction is very ambiguous. It's not very specific. But then afterwards, she wants it to be this specific thing. It's like, hey, what are we? What is this? And essentially, the guy is put in a position, where he either says, "Oh no, we're nothing," or he leaves, or he just keeps stringing her along, or he says, "Okay, I'll be the boyfriend." So he's put in a position where he essentially has to make that decision on what he's going to do. And here's the thing, though. That's just the first level. That's the boyfriend level. The level beyond that, when you're talking about making a woman your wife and stuff like that, that's when a guy, basically the level where the guy actually falls in love with the woman. That's where it gets a little hairy, and that's where we kind of get the main part, the get to the nitty gritty aspects of love versus value. So Rollo Tomasi talks about how women love value and men value love. So that's kind of the source of a lot of our problems. It's one of the reasons why women can't find long lasting relationships nowadays. And it's the reason why men can't find long lasting relationships. Is because the culture is kind of skewing it's skewing to a situation where everyone is valuing value. So ironically, since women love value, in order for a woman to love a man, basically the man has to have some sort of value that the woman perceives as valuable. It can be anything. It doesn't necessarily just have to be money. But I mean, I would say that's the universal, money and wealth and social status. That's like the universal value that that's what keeps a woman clinging to a guy for as long as possible. So it's almost like, um, let's just say for the average guy, and, this is a little harsh, but the average guy is naturally committal because, he naturally commits to a woman for long term. But it's simply because most men don't have as many options as the average woman. Women have less passive sexual options. Or they have more passive sexual options, tend to have way more than men. And that's kind of what makes women they're actually the natural non-committal sex. Because even when they're committed, the fact that they have so many options, they'll either end up being very picky with the man they're already with, or they'll be kind of have one foot in the door, one foot out the door, just by nature. But with a guy, he's literally going to put all his energy into that woman because he doesn't want to lose steady access to sex and he doesn't want to lose companionship. But one of the main reasons why is because he simply doesn't have as many options. So it's kind of the abundance versus uh, a scarcity mindset. You see the same thing with shoppers, things like that. Uh, anyways, yeah. So this is literally one of the most, for me, it's one of the most interesting topics. I feel like I'm talking on a soapbox and there's no one here to listen, but it's like, this is a topic I've been thinking about for a while. So I'll just go slightly. I'll go slightly into it. And so this is the podcast, but after the podcast, I'll do like small little clips just to outline the ideas, maybe 3 or 4 videos, maybe 4 or 5 videos, just to outline what I'm saying and just to pay tribute to some of the people who are coming up with these ideas, like Rollo Tomasi. This came straight off of his podcast. And so, yeah, so like I was saying, men and women can't find long-lasting love because women love value and men value love. So what does that mean? Means if you have two groups of people, particularly men and women, working to acquire value, then that means one side isn't gonna. So you're gonna have one side not able to find love. It goes into economics. So women are trying to accrue or increase their socioeconomic value, right? So the issue with this, on one level, is that the average man is also doing that. So it kind of creates a vacuum for love. So, I mean, in a way, a lot of women would be way more loyal if they could find men who had higher social status and or higher socioeconomic status. Um, I mean, I guess there are different ways that we can do things, and there's possibly different dynamics that I haven't looked into that are maybe possible in the future. But it seems to be that the less socioeconomic value a man has, the more women tend to are select with those particular partners. So the partners who don't have that, acquired level of socioeconomic status, then the women would be, they would tend to have a shotgun style sexuality where they go from one guy to the next guy to the next guy to the next guy. But all of that is in hopes to find a guy who can facilitate the long term sexual needs and a long term provision. Uh, so there's a lot here. Uh, let's see. So men value love. So men are very idealistic. I don't really have to cover this. Roll to Mossy covered a lot of that. But I notice, for example, a lot of women when they leave their husbands or boyfriends or something like that. Just my observations. They leave their uh, they leave their boyfriends or their husbands. But then one of the things they tend to do is they kind of criticize the husband or the boyfriend, either in their mind or just literally towards the boyfriend or husband. Kind of like it's almost like they have to justify their decision after the fact, like retroactively. It's like, well, you never did this, you never did that. And what's interesting, I find, is that the criticisms are extremely necessary, I think, because they're trying to convince themselves. It may even be a good sign because they're trying to convince themselves that what they're doing is the right thing to do. Uh, I think that's really interesting. Because if you ever had a woman break up with you and she starts talking and like you have a conversation with her and things that you did that are bad, I mean, the 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 thought that I have is, well, what about the good things, right? But then the good things wouldn't really what's going on there, and guys get annoyed. I believe a lot of guys get annoyed by that because they're like, she's only saying the bad things I did. Did she forget the good things you did? No, she didn't forget the good things you did. That's one thing. But the other thing is, she's using her intellect in order to rationalize her intuition is what's going on. So she's trying to make the choice to reject you and get rid of you, right? So in order to do that, she has to rationalize why she's making that decision. And that's where you get the criticisms of your behavior and stuff like that. It's like, well, you never did this, and you didn't buy me flowers, and you didn't take me out to the dinners I wanted and stuff like that. And a lot of guys, they'll try to, towards the end of the relationship, they'll be like, "Look, honey, I'm doing it now. I'm doing it now." It's like, it's like, no, there's probably some covert contracts or some underground meanings, underground intentions as to why she's making those kind of decisions. So it's not even something I think is worthwhile for a man unpacking. If she's willing to throw you away, you may as well, because there's a level of self dignity as well. It's almost like, in a way, she could never really come back the way that it was. So she's tearing down that whole house of cards. You almost just gotta let her. You just have to watch it burn. Um, I've noticed if a man doesn't have enough value, enough socioeconomic value, the woman won't be loyal. There's not enough wealth to elicit a strong enough effect for her to want to hold on to the relationship. And we're seeing it today with the modern millennial men. They don't have enough wealth. They basically priced out of love. They don't have enough wealth in order to elicit the type of loyalty that they would want from a woman. And it's really sad. For a lot of men, it's extremely sad. And it makes me, you know, I think about that sometimes. I'm like, man, it's like you have an entire generation of men, especially the Zers, they're going to have an interesting time. You have an entire generation of men basically being priced out of love, priced out of an opportunity to be with a woman long term. Like that's for I would say that it's a scary thought for sure. Um, yeah. Um, I pretty much covered most of the ideas, but I want to go a little bit further with this idea and then maybe jump into some other concepts. I'll probably do the concepts in small, short, 2 or 3 pre-recorded videos for my channel. So yeah, so men value love, right? Men objectify objects, but then we also project love onto objects. Whereas women, they project love onto a man based off of other objects around a man. So it's like by proxy. So that when they look at a man, they feel love, but it's based off of what the man has around him. So if it's like money or if it's his charisma plus other things, his sexual prowess plus, it's like a combination of things that she just measures and tallies. I don't think she's literally, drawing out charts and stuff. But uh, so one aspect of this is so guys who make a lot of money, for example, guys who lift and they're very physically fit, guys who are very you know those kind of things, especially if they're tall. Um, those kind of men have value based off of physical traits, based off of material things, based off of socioeconomic prowess, social prowess, how they carry themselves, things like that. It's very holistic, I would say, with women. And I'm not the only one with this opinion. But the thing is, when a woman finally gets past the boyfriend stage with the man, and she's saying, "Hey, I would like to," she wants to take it further, then the man is put in a position where he has to, in order for the woman to be able to to be loyal to the man or values that the man has outside of himself, in order for her to, and that's hard because a lot of the issue is the women around that woman are aiding in the appraisal of a man's value. So here you have this. You have man's value being appraised by the emotions he shows and by his own actions, but then it's also appraised large part from the amount, just how he carries himself. It's a very cumulative effect. Um, but also that value that the man has, other women are trying to find value as well. So in a way, what's interesting about that is the woman, if she sees that other women value you, then she values you more. But it, it, it's I mean, a lot of people in the manosphere talk about this. They talk about how women use pre-selection and how it's like a shortcut to where they don't have to figure out as much information. And there's probably reasons why they needed to do that in the past, but it's frustrating to a lot of men because if the man's not a player and if he's not like playing the field, then he's probably not going to have a lot of women looking his way necessarily. So I guess the goal that a lot of guys who are trying to go out and keep a woman long term is that he's kind of balancing being desirable to other women and staying loyal to his woman. So it's a difficult tightrope. Um, so yeah, one thing. So one thing I would say, and this is a little bit frank, about women is they don't love men. Um, they love their kin. Now, their family. Yes, the men in their family. Yes, because that's. I mean, there's a shared genetics there. So I think there's an actual intrinsic love to a certain degree within that regard. But a man who's not her kin, she, just in my opinion, she doesn't love the man. She loves the man based off of what value he can offer her. I'm sure people in the manosphere have heard of Default's law. I won't really go too much into that, but I mean, I'm kind of dipping into it for sure. But the man, his value or his love, like the woman's love for the man, is based off of his value, right? So when a man gets sick and he can no longer work for like let's say a couple of days or maybe a week, then what happens, right? So the man is so with that situation, the man is pretty much not of value to the woman. And I mean, therefore she falls out of love because her love is based off of value that the man provides. Now, same thing with marriage. A lot of marriages end because of financial troubles. So the the man will have financial issues, and the woman, he maybe lost his job, and a lot of times the women will fall out of love with the man, right? And you think, well, how is that possible if she, made these vows and they married each other, and why would a woman just leave? There's no way women aren't, and a lot of people would be like, you're just trying to make women look bad. It's like, no, no, man. One of the main reasons why women leave marriages is because of financial issues. Granted, you also have other things like irreconcilable differences, domestic violence, things like that. But like this is uh what's interesting about it is that it's it's not necessarily it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just is. Once the man stops losing his value, once the man that's the thing. It's I think it's one of the reasons why women's love or what we perceive as love from a woman, like it's more volatile than what we would perceive, what we would call a love from a man. When you look at it, it kind of stems from two different dynamics. A man's love is very different. Men tend to be more forgiving, just as a creature. Women tend to be less forgiving. There's a lot of other dichotomies and things to go into there, but uh anyways, I'm gonna take a little break. Speaking of that, oh, all right. So, love versus value. So, I was talking to a friend and we got into it a little on the love versus value. And I told him that women, they ask a man for love and to love them and to care for them and to be loyal to them. There's one thing I noticed. First off, just as an aside, um, women, so they asked a man not to cheat on them during the relationship, but in a way, the woman ends up cheating on a guy right before the relationship ends. And this is what I mean. So women are always constantly asking the guy, like, hey, 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 no cheating. And the guy, a lot of times the guys are like, okay, I can't cheat. I gotta be with my woman. I have to be loyal, things like that. But the issue is the issue is women. The issue is a lot of times before a woman breaks up with a man, it could be months before she's ready to break up with him, and she's kind of just mourning and grieving the relationship months before she even breaks up, right? And she's pretty much already choosing a suitor. A lot of times women create expectations for a man, and then once the man can't live up to it, and these are covert expectations a lot of times, once the man shows that he can't live up to these expectations that he's not even aware of, then she basically either just ghosts him or she tries to move on to another man who will live up to her expectations. Um, now, this is in a way it's like it's like retroactive. It's very retroactive in nature, the approach. It's a very retroactive sleight of hand. Uh, in a way, it is cheating because very similar to what the guy's doing. It's just the woman is trying to keep him from cheating in real time, or she wants to know if he cheated in the past as well, which is interesting. But whenever she's ready to leave the guy, she could be planning talking to a guy, just emotionally investing, and then eventually pop it up. Eh, I guess there's a lot of preparation in it, but uh, uh, slightly different dynamic there. Men and women grieve differently, and we kind of grieve the opposite of each other. Men, especially with relationships, they tend to process. Men tend to process the emotional aspect of what's going on, the emotional grief and anguish after making a decision, whereas women tend to process the grief well before the decision is made. Uh, and a lot of times, people or men can't really understand this, and it feels like a betrayal as a result. Because by the time a woman is ready to break up with you, and she lets you know you're trying to salvage the situation, but she's already decided that you can't meet her expectations, and she's already kind of jumped ship emotionally. She's already looking for different men, or and that's really awful. It sucks, but I mean, I think it's part of our programming, part of how we're programmed by nature. So uh, there's that. All right, so I'm already getting tired. I'm not gonna go too much further with this live stream. Uh, so I'll rehash a couple of the idea I was just talking about tonight, and then just go out from there. All right, so I'm talking about the feminine psyche, love versus value, and I'm talking about how women, what they perceive as love is simply just them placing you in a higher level of value than themselves, and kind of seeing you as valuable based off of the cues they're getting around them, and based off of the milestones that you're demonstrating to them. So the milestones are kind of outward things that show that you're progressing in whatever you're doing. So that's one element that I would say is good, because they want to see growth, and they want to see that you're getting to a particular place. They want to see progress, which is, I guess, it's kind of ironic because it's like, um, I said they want to see progress, but maybe not, because Rich Cooper, he says this thing. It's a really kind of pungent line. He says, women don't struggle with a man; they wait at the finish line, and they wait at the finish line and pick the winners, which I thought was really interesting. Um, yeah. Uh, anyways, yeah. So I'm pretty much about to end the live stream. Just wanted to rehash some of the ideas real quick, just to go over it again. So, women value love, or women love value, and men value love. Um, and place a higher value on abstract concepts, and a higher value on commitment, on uh, rules, fidelity, boundaries, things like that. Women, they don't have boundaries necessarily. Their boundaries are based off of mm, what they would consider boundaries is based off of value, in a way, um, or loyalty. I guess you can say loyalty. You don't have to use value, but with I guess women, their ability to be loyal is dependent on the asker of this loyalty, like the amount of value that they prescribe, that they offer to the woman. And it's not fail proof. This is just a thought. But if the guy is tall, he's a D1 basketball player or something like that, he's getting scouted and he's got a lot of attention from women. Think about it. I was just, going from string team to string team. He wasn't a D1 basketball player. He doesn't really have a large following anywhere. And he's just kind of slogging along. Um, what's weird is I think the reason why men try so incredibly hard to increase their socioeconomic status is for the simple fact that they won't be able to acquire any real level of loyalty from a woman just by having a normal socioeconomic status. So a lot of times when we hear women say, they want to be equal to a man, they want to have equal economics with the man, stuff like that. It's kind of disingenuous, and it actually threatens the nature of the relationship for the average man. The average man, in order for a woman to see him as valuable enough to want to commit to him long term, uh, it's not fail proof, but I'm saying like it helps to have a kid with him would be if he has, let's just say, over 50% more wealth than she does. Uh, Again, this is just nature. People are arguing up and down. They'll say we can be equal because women love that equal mindset because they have this natural communitarian kind of mindset about things, like a maternal instincts uh, as well that go into that, which is very good for families. But when it comes to actually upending social systems and things like that just to make everything equal, that's when you get like a weird. That's when you get a dichotomy that was never designed to be. Men were never designed to be women's equals, and women were never designed to be men's equals. It doesn't make sense. Nature tinkered with something. It saw that a need needed to be met on whatever particular side, and for some reason we figured out a way. I mean, we're trying to get rid of that now. We figured out a way to take that take whatever complementary roles we provide for each other and coalesce it, and adding in a bit of uh, symbiotic functionality to the relationship over time. And now we're kind of trying to reverse this symbiosis and create chaos or parasitism for sure. Chaos because there's not a lot of rules and boundaries being presented for women. When women go into marriage, they don't have any. They're not raised to be wives. And by the time they actually decide to marry, they're ran through by a lot of men. They have a lot of baggage. They have a lot of debt from college or just whatever they were doing in their lives. Generally, it's college. Now women are leading in college, and yeah, they're leading in college admissions and things like that, and they're leaving colleges with more degrees than the average man. So what we see is that what I'm seeing is that even though on paper it looks like they're succeeding, it's not. I don't think it's what it seems. I think a lot of them are kind of like, I mean, you got alcoholism going up, you got use of antidepressants going up. Even with my people I knew and the women I was dating, they were on antidepressants, things like that. So it just wasn't really pretty. But a lot of them are, in a way, they're kind of being forced to be unhappy, but then they're also making that decision. So it's like, I mean, you're an adult, but the people in their community, especially their mothers, like one of my exes, she had a mom telling her, just play the field. You got till you're 35 and then you can have a kid. But it's like, um, just listening to that, that idea, that mentality. I mean, and this is the kind of woman who was saying things like, "Why I want a man, but I don't need him." I kind of had to demonstrate to her, it's like, well, the fact that you're saying you want him, but you don't need him, he's not going to want you, is the problem because of your mindset. It's like this very, in a way, a lot of women choose to be masculine because they feel like acting that way will defend them from the men who've hurt them in the past, and things like that. They feel like it. They feel like they'll have this defense like based off of weakness. Really is like based off of fear. It's not actually masculine. But I think that's a different story. I mean, they're still very soft people on the inside. Anyways, all right, y'all. Well, this is my live stream, just introducing myself, coming back into the stream of things, throwing my ideas out. Yes, I know you can see my dirty dishes. So I'm gonna wash my dishes. So I'm gonna take out the trash right there. I'm gonna take that out, and I'm gonna do that. And I'm gonna clean that right there. So yeah, I'm gonna throw out way more ideas in the future, and I'm gonna make some small sound bites right now. So if anyone's into that. All right, cool. So this is the Iron Sun, and yeah. So this was love versus value, the feminine psyche.